Hey guys, welcome back to the Upper Room Bible Study. I'm going to read you another story out of the Bible. This story grabbed me every time I read it, but it grabbed me again while I was reading it. I have a app on my phone, an audio Bible, and listening to this on the way to work today, and it grabbed me, and then I was reading it again just to go over it again, and I thought I'll put this on video so you guys gets to grab you guys too. So this story is to let you know that you don't know what God has planned. He can see the next second. You can't. We can't. We can't see the next second. He knows what's going on. And if we trust in Him, even if it sounds crazy, which we're going to find out here real quick, it's possible. And so I'll try to, maybe I'll interject a little bit while I'm reading it so you get the idea what's going on. I'm in 2 Kings chapter 6. I'm going to start at verse 24. And it happened after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his army and went up and besieged Samaria. So the Syrian army besieged the Samaria army. And what in Samaria, that means this army went up and they surrounded it, the best of my knowledge, and now nothing can go in and nothing can come out. So you pretty much starve them out. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and indeed they besieged it until a donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver, and 1/4 of a cob of dove droppings was sold for 5 shekels of silver. So things got so bad in Samaria that a donkey's head was worth so much, and dove poop was worth so much. Then as the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, now this is tough to hear, but this is amazing. This is how bad it got in Samaria while the Syrian army had it besieged. As the king was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, "Help me, O Lord King." And he said, "If the Lord does not help you, where can I find help for you? From the threshing floor, from the winepress?" Then the king said to her, "What is your trouble?" And she said, "This woman said to me, 'Give your son that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow.' So we boiled my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, 'Give your son that we may eat him.' But she has hidden her son." Now it happened when the king heard the words of the woman that he tore his clothes, and as he passed by on the wall, the people looked, and there underneath he had sackcloth on his body. Now can you imagine? Things have gotten so bad, they're eating their kids. And this woman isn't complaining about that. She's complaining that the woman and her that had this agreement, she's not following through. That's bad. Then he said, "God, do so to me and more also, if the head of Elisha, the son of Shaphat, remains on him today." But Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. And the king sent a man ahead of him. But before the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, "Do you see how this son of a murderer has sent someone to take away my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him?" And while he was still talking with them, there was the messenger coming down to him. And then the king said, "Surely this calamity is from the Lord. Why should I wait for the Lord any longer?" Chapter 7. Here's where we get into it. Then Elisha said, "Hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord, tomorrow about this time, a seah of fine flour shall be sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria." So, in other words, Elisha's saying, tomorrow, everything will be totally different. Right now, people are eating their kids. Dove poop is worth so much. A donkey's head. Things are so bad. And Elisha says, "Hear the word of the Lord. Tomorrow, about this time." So he's talking 24 hours later. Things are going to be absolutely opposite of what they are. So an officer on whose hand the king leaned answered the man of God and said, "Look, if the Lord would make windows in heaven, could this thing be?" And he said, in fact, you shall see it with your eyes, but you shall not eat of it. Now there were now this is like in another part of the town, there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate. Now if you had leprosy, you weren't allowed in town. And they said to one another, why are we sitting here until we die? If we say we will enter the city, the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we die also. Now therefore, come, let us surrender to the army of the Syrians. If they keep us alive, we shall live. If they kill us, we shall die. And they rose at twilight to go to the camp of the Syrians. And when they had come to the outskirts of the Syrian camp, to their surprise, no one was there. So these 4 lepers are at the gate. They're like, if we go back in the city and we say the heck with all the laws and stuff, the famine's still there, we're going to die. But if we don't, we just sit here, we're going to die. But if we go and hang out with the Syrians that are keeping us besieged, that's why we're all dying here. They let us live, then we live. If they kill us, we're dead. So sure enough, they go check out the Syrians. When they had come to the outskirts of the Syrian camp, to their surprise, there was nobody there. All the enemy were gone. Their tents are there. Let's read. For the Lord had caused the army of the Syrians to hear the noise of chariots and the noise of horses, the noise of a great army. So they said to one another, look, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to attack us. Therefore they arose and fled at twilight and left the camp intact, their tents, their horses, and their donkeys, and they fled for their lives. So God caused them to hear horses and chariots like a giant army is coming, and they just took off. They left everything there. And when these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they went into one tent and ate and drank and carried from it silver and gold and clothing and went and hid it. So they're like, got to the tent, they went inside. You can see them eating and drinking and scarfing up whatever they could, and they run over and back into the woods and hide it. Then they run back to another tent. Then they said one to another, we are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, and we remain silent. If we wait until morning light, some punishment will come upon us. Now therefore, come, let us go and tell the king's household. So they went and called to the gatekeepers of the city and told them, we went to the Syrian camp, and surprisingly no one was there. Not a human sound, only horses and donkeys tied, and the tents are intact. And the gatekeepers called out, and they told it to the king's household inside. So the lepers told the gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers are telling it to the king. So the king arose in the night and said to his servants, let me now tell you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we are hungry. Therefore they have gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, when they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and get into the city. And one of his servants answered and said, please let several men take 5 of the remaining horses which are left in the city. Look, they may either become like all the multitude of Israel that are left in it, or indeed, I say they may become like all the multitude of Israel left from those who are consumed. So let us send them and see. Therefore they took 2 chariots with horses, and the king sent them in the direction of the Syrian army, saying, go and see. And they went after them to the Jordan, and indeed all the road was full of garments and weapons which the Syrians had thrown away in their haste. So the messengers returned and told the king. Then the people went out and plundered the tents of the Syrians. So now the word got back to the Samaria that sure enough the camp is deserted. Now all the people rush out there and they're plundering everything. They've been starving and eating babies and poop and donkey heads. So they all rush out to plunder this place. Plundered the tents of the Syrians. So a seah of flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. So that's what Elisha said. He says, tomorrow at this time, flour's going to be this much, barley's going to be this much. And that captain of the guard was like, what are you, crazy? Even if God opened up the heavens, there's not enough time for that to for that big of a change to happen. Now the king had appointed the officer on whose hand he leaned to have charge of the gate. So when all the people were rushing out, the king, the guy that said there's no way this can happen, he's in charge of the gate. But the people trampled him in the gate, and he died, just as the man of God had said, who spoke when the king came down to him. So it happened, just as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, and a seah of fine flour for a shekel, shall be sold tomorrow about this time in the gate of Samaria. Then that officer had answered the man of God and said, Now look, if the Lord would make windows in heaven, could such a thing be? And he had said, In fact, you shall see it with your eyes, but you shall not eat of it. And so it happened to him, for the people trampled him in the gate, and he died. So Elisha said, You shall see it, but you shall not eat of it. And if this guy knew Elisha, he probably was thinking, how is that even possible? I'll see it, but I won't be able to partake in it. Well, that's because you're going to be trampled to death, because God caused the other army to flee, and now all the people are going out, and sure enough, overnight, all of a sudden they got everything they need again. So don't doubt God. Like right now, you look around and you say, man, this place is going to the dogs. But tomorrow, something can happen, and it completely be a whole different life that you don't even know about. So through the bad, continue having faith in God. There's a story to prove it. See you in Bible study.